Hi, and welcome to our Lux Connectivity and Productivity session. I'd like to welcome in our panelists for today, Steve Haas, the CEO of SH Acoustics, Dwayne Barney, the president of DC Builds, and John Predham, the executive director of strategic planning and business for Lipolis Electric. We are going to be covering some great content here today as we look into the future of connectivity and productivity and the current state of home offices. During this session, we will showcase some custom luxury home offices. We'll detail the tech and architectural trends in home office spaces. We will explain the connectivity needs for a variety of home working environments. And we will also give you direction on how to successfully execute on your own connected home office projects. So we have a lot of great stuff to get to and some great perspectives to share with you from our expert panel here. One thing I'd really like to start out with is getting an understanding of the trends of what we're seeing right now as far as what home offices are doing, because as many people work from home, this is going to be something that really continues on into the future, especially when we're dealing in the luxury households and builds. So we have some wealthy clients. They may be working from home. They want to make sure that they're showing off to their clients, to their coworkers, to their peers in their industries. When they are working from home, they are doing some video calls, that they're in a setting that not only looks great, but is also reliable. So Dwayne, maybe we can start with you. What are some of the things that we're seeing right now as far as home offices go and what those work from home needs are from these luxury clients?
Well, right now what I've seen is pretty much surprise. A lot of these executives didn't plan to be working from home. So they're working out of a guest bedroom or working in their study, which really wasn't set up for any of these activities. The home was a respite from their office, and they're just kind of surprised and kind of making it work. And they need solutions. They need good connectivity and a good working space.
And Steve, how about you? You deal from the acoustic perspective. So this is something that's going to be a very big deal too, because not only does these wealthy executives, they want their home offices to look great, but also they need to sound great. And if their audio is off, this is going to be a big part of what these home offices are. So what are you seeing as far as trends go, at least in the current state?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right, Tony. I have been dealing with home offices actually long before COVID, because the clients we work with, the executives, they really do want their office away from their office a lot. And so they were looking into building and dedicating that home office even before COVID hit. But now with the pandemic, it's just become heightened in terms of not just the quality of sound that you get on video conferencing when you don't have the right acoustics, but also the privacy issues, especially at home with kids now at home, learning from home, spouses may be doing other activities. It's just become a much more heightened awareness of the sound issues related to home offices.
And John, how about from an integrator's perspective? We have so many pieces of technology that can be included in these home working environments. What are the needs and what are you seeing right now that really is a big part of what these home offices are at the current moment?
Sure. So what we're seeing now since COVID hit back in March, a lot of our clients have been working from home, but more on a limited basis. So they've worked off their Wi-Fi in their home. And what we're doing now is we're going back, we're upgrading networks. We're giving them dedicated hardwired lines connected direct to their computers. We're also setting up network printers in their homes. And we're actually now going back in and helping them with lighting, HVAC within the space. They're starting now to realize this may be more of a permanent solution, and we're trying to give them the right environment for them to work productively.
So what I'd love to do now is take a look at some of these actual completed projects that we've worked on recently. Steve, this is something that you've completed fairly recently. Let's take a look at what is going on here.
Sure. Well, this one is in Park City, Utah, for a wealthy executive, and he was very concerned about usually the two main issues that we face, both the quality of sound in the space, so it's not too reverberant when he's on a conference call, but also the containment of sound. So the containment was actually interesting because we literally had to move in the architectural design this office twice in its planned location just to be able to put it away from major mechanical rooms or kids' play spaces and such, because it was such an important thing for him. And then the quality of sound was simply, we were able to take one of the first applications of acoustic plaster, in this case Boswafon, for those of you who are familiar with that, and create that entire ceiling out of it. And no one knows that that's an acoustic treatment. It looks like acoustic plaster. So our work is very much unseen, but it has a dramatic effect on the home office in this case.
And was there much technology that you had to take into consideration as you were really starting to put this together and visualize what this could become?
There's always the technology in this case. I mean, this was a few years ago, so it wasn't even up to today's standards when this one was done. So, but there were definitely audio and video conferencing capabilities in this room, and everything that we do supports that. Okay, we want to basically set that clean palette environment for sound so that when the technology works, as well as folks like John make it work for the clients, you know, it's going to be wonderful for not just for the person in the office, but also for those listening in and communicating on the other ends.
I'd love to share another project that you've worked on as well. Take us through this one a little bit.
Yeah, this is in Long Island. Little bit of out there type thinking here. This was a individual who just loved his yacht, so he wanted to make his home office, which overlooks the southern shore of Long Island Sound, basically like the bow of his yacht. So some people do go to great lengths to create that aesthetic that they want for their home office, because they know just how much, when they're not at their real office, they want to spend time in here. Could be very late at night, of course, like most of us or some of us executives do. And certainly having that comfort acoustically, the entire ceiling is treated here, where you see those kind of hunter green or khaki colored panels. Those are all treated. But uniquely, this space happened to be located right next to his shooting range in his home, because everybody should have a shooting range next to their home office so that when they get stressed out, they can just go right next door and vent their frustrations. But nonetheless, you can imagine the isolation that we needed to provide in case, you know, his teenagers or grown children wanted to use that shooting range. So all forms and factors come into play here in these types of homes.
John, how about some perspective here from the integrator side? And there were a couple really interesting things there about, you know, being near a shooting range and just the general shape, all the windows within this office here. What are some of the things from maybe an integrator's point of view that this is that you can use to really heighten this type of build, this office for a work from home type situation?
So a couple things with this, it's kind of a unique room. I mean, looking directly at it, you can see all the outside ambient light coming in. I'm sure there's probably motorized shades in here with window treatments. At that point, when window treatments come down, the room is obviously going to be darker. There's probably lighting controls tied in as well. But one of the things I like about this, when you look at the layout, you don't see cords on the floor. You know, there's probably dedicated floor receptacles. The connectivity is clean. You don't see wires draped over the desks, you know, to the monitors. So, I mean, this is, you know, a very, very cool office, not something you see every day, but I'm sure it could be very productive. I wouldn't mind working in that office every day.
I'm sure many are the same. Dwayne, how about as a builder? You know, you see a space like this. Is this, you know, something that you can really get a great vision around, working with folks like John and Steve to be able to really accomplish a great work from home space?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my first thought along John's train of thought there was the windows. Part of the working at home has now become the video portion of this, which a few years ago wasn't that important. Now lighting is vitally important in any one of these spaces. Even if those windows are open and you don't have shades, you've got shadow problems as the sun is moving around. Clouds even moving around can change all the lighting in the room drastically in an instant. So you've got to control those elements, because video really is part of and is a integral to a home office these days.
Let's take a look at one more project. This is a little bit of a different look, a different view. Steve, give us a little insight into what we're seeing here.
Sure. This project was in a single family home in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. And this is kind of an example where, as Dwayne had said before, people are finding spaces to make their offices. This was a new home, and so it was intent to be an office, but the library function was even just as important as the office. I don't even have a picture showing the desk on the opposite side of the room, but it just gives you the scale of some of these spaces can be, where they just want to make them kind of their haven when they're home working. So that's really the effect that we're getting here, is the multi-use of a space, and libraries, dens, offices are often combined in the kind of homes or apartments that we work on.
Dwayne, from your point of view, doubling a space like this as a library, as an office, does that give you a little bit more ability to what you can do with technology in situations like this?
Well, your technology in this is going to vary because you've got multiple people using the space then. It's not dedicated just to the home office. So now you've got gaming controls, you've got other people wanting to be involved in that space and even controlling the space. We've got some open doorways in here. We've got a lot of hard surfaces, so you've got acoustic issues as well as just the connectivity. There's a lot of challenges here.
Do you feel that there are many challenges here, John, as an integrator in a room like this?
I do, but again, I mean, this is the trend we're seeing now. I mean, not only are we working from home, our kids are, being schooled at home right now, either on a limited basis or a full-time basis. So we see this all the time. This is why we emphasize the importance of the wireless network in the house. So you're not roaming around hitting dead spots. I mean, I've taken calls, Teams calls on my cell phone, and I'm on the Wi-Fi walking around my house or even a job site. So I think it's kind of the new way we're going to live. We've got to have that solid network within the home, including libraries, your home office, but even our clients now, they're walking out on their back deck, they're sitting out by their pool. We've all seen it on, in the videos of kids running in. I've been thinking about creating a thing where it's like a X-ray in use or a recording light outside a room before your kids come running in when you're on an important call.
Right. So one of those things we've all learned to live with these days, but if there are ways that we can minimize it, that would certainly be helpful. I'd love to take a look at a couple more real world implementations here in just a few minutes. But after seeing some of these home offices that have been completed, single family home type, how about from a collaboration perspective? Dwayne, Steve, John, you're all sort of working from different perspectives here. Dwayne, let's start with you. As a builder, you understand going into a project that you need to build this really great home office. You have to collaborate with these teams. How do you make sure that you start from the front to make sure that you can execute on the end in a great way?
Well, the biggest thing with any good planning is to understand what your objective is. What does the client want? What are their needs? Are they going to be looking for private conference calls and they really need strict privacy and a lot of security? Or is it kind of a general use space that we looked at the last office where it's got open doors and they're a little more comfortable with that? So understanding where the client's going with the space is very important, and then collaborating on the acoustic side. And of course, the challenges on the acoustic side are always you've got, hard library spaces with a lot of wood. It's tough to control that acoustically from an interior standpoint. And connectivity, that's got to be pre-planned. Hardwiring these items in so the client has a good solid connection, and working with their offices to make sure you've got the security and the connectivity back to the office that's needed.
Steve, how about on that acoustic point of view? What do you need to do to make sure that you can connect with the builder, the owner, and everybody else who needs to be involved so that they understand that you are making sure that their room, their space is going to sound as great as it can be?
Mm-hmm. It all starts with awareness of what is needed for the sound of a space like this. And when I talk about the sound, it's not just the acoustic quality, but certainly as we've been preparing for this session, microphone quality, that people have with their Zoom calls or other types of meetings. It's all part of it. It's all part of creating that environment, the noise, not having HVAC noise fill your home office space, or plumbing. Worse, imagine having a guest powder room right next to your home office, and right in the middle of an important conference call, somebody flushes the toilet and you hear every bit of that on your conference call. It's very embarrassing. And we've had to come in numerous times and fix something like that with the builder after the fact, because designers think about acoustics to a certain point, but not certainly, as we can attest to, enough, and our clients can attest to, enough. So it's really, we always love to get involved, and ideally want to be involved in the design, so that by the time the builder gets handed the design, it's all worked out. It's all coordinated. The acoustic materials that are established work with the designer. When that doesn't happen, and we get involved when a builder brings us in, that's really interesting, because then, the builder and we have those discussions of like, are you sure this home office is going to perform well? Because it's, we just literally got involved in one today, this morning, in Martha's Vineyard, where the designer had designed a 15-foot tall dedicated home office conference room, and all wood, not a single stitch of soft materials anywhere. And we looked at the plans and we just said, this is just not going to give him a good result. The integrator was horrified because he knew. And so we had to really backtrack with the designer and with the builder, really to kind of come up with what we could change this design to that won't throw out the aesthetic, but basically modify it so that we're taming the space, not killing it, but just taming it.
John, where do you come into this process to make sure that not only is the space great, but that you can deliver on the back end? Should you start working with builders early on and architects to offer them, whether it's packages, to start thinking about these home projects, these home workspaces in a different way? Or how do you see that as an integrator?
Well, kind of what Dwayne mentioned before, every house is built on a foundation. When we're doing a home office, we're going to build it, off the foundation from the ground up. On a design engineering side, we're going to lay out the infrastructure, including the cabling for networking, as well as audio. I mean, most of the offices we're doing now may have background music in it as well. They have multiple monitors that may be wall mounted or desk mounted. So a lot goes into the design. What we used to do as a head end might have been in the basement before. We may have a small head end now built into the office in the home. We'll have a network switch right in there. And then when it comes to the building and even the acoustics, we've got to be involved to place wireless access points that may be in the ceiling and not seen in the wall or behind furniture. I mean, our goal is to make sure our client has the right connectivity, whether it is wired or wireless. So a lot of it goes in the planning stage.
So we've had a chance to take a look at some of these home offices in single family homes, but how about different spaces like apartments? Steve, this is one that you worked on not long ago. So take us through what we're seeing here.
Right. That's a pretty small office for a Manhattan apartment. And the unique thing about this is that the client wanted complete silence in this home office. He was a television executive, and he had so many conference calls each day. But the thing that was the potential acoustic conflict, two potential conflicts. Number one, just to the left of this home office is a living room that doubled as a home theater, that his wife or his grown children would come over and blast, the latest music concert or action movie at the same time he wanted to be working in silence. So that wall with the built-ins is so incredibly thick, probably about, by the time you get the shelving and the double isolation wall in there, it could almost be about 3 feet thick, which in a relatively small Manhattan apartment is just taking up a lot of space. But this was his priority. The other, behind the filtering shade, that's Fifth Avenue. And he's only on the 3rd floor. This is not a 50-story penthouse here. So the buses, trucks, basically were a huge issue for them. And we had to work with Tischler, the window company, to do all custom windows that were highly upgraded for acoustics based on our specs, to make sure that when those buses and trucks decelerated and accelerated at the light right outside, you didn't hear anything. And that was so important to them. So it doesn't matter if they're in single family homes or apartments. It really does matter what the client's individual needs are.
We can take a look at, these are some rendering now of a project that you currently have going on, which is a little bit different than the one that we just saw.
Exactly. So what if I told you this was not on grade? This was 45 stories up in the air on a building with an outdoor green space. Very, very unique for an executive. I can't say where, but it's definitely something that they're very concerned again about the urban noise. So the curtain walls were all upgraded. The adjacent spaces were upgraded. The ceiling again was planning or is planning to be acoustic plaster to give that smooth, seamless look. And, these are all just, I'm sounding repetitive, I understand, but these are all just commonalities that clients certainly understand from all their experience in bad sounding rooms, what they need. And so it's important to convey to the architects, the designers, the builders, what the issues are in all our respects. Certainly John's as well, technology-wise.
Yeah. And we have one more here, which is a little bit even more different than the last two we just saw.
Exactly. Yeah, this one is under construction right now in Manhattan, and it's 65 stories up in the air. And still there are issues to deal with from a sound perspective. Plus, he wants this to double as a music listening room. So kind of have to think about sound behavior with speakers that are all hidden in the walls, but still he wants to have serious sound there. So again, multiple uses. This is next to his children's playroom, so he doesn't want to hear them coming in. You could tell by the door, the rendering of that door there, how thick that is, to make sure that he has a real acoustically rated door with seals, with gaskets all around, so that when that door shuts, nothing comes in sound-wise.
Yeah, it's certainly a very thick door, and it's going to be a great office when that finally does come into play. One other perspective I'd love to get, John, I know you were working on a new development in New York that's going to feature some interesting working areas, even outdoors. So tell us a little bit about that project and some of the things that could be coming into play there from a technology perspective, as some of these people are actually working from, say, a back deck.
Sure. So we're doing a project that's about 70 miles north of Manhattan. And one of the other trends now is a lot of people are leaving their homes and their towers or penthouses in Manhattan. They're moving upstate New York. So we're finding ourselves now kind of in a boom. Houses that we didn't think were going to start for another 6, maybe 12 months, these clients want to move on them right away. So we're spending a lot of time going over the infrastructure. We're talking to architects and designers about dedicated spaces for their office, but also the extension of the office now, which is bringing them out to, I mentioned earlier, out to a pool area, a balcony. And these are 10,000 square foot homes, large spaces. There's another area of the project that is condos. They have 4-unit and 8-unit condos. Again, large, over 4,000 square feet. And infrastructure is important. The first phase of it, we were not involved with. There was not a lot of pre-wiring done. And we're going in now trying to retrofit and enhance their network on a Wi-Fi side, or try and pull up new cables. When it comes to Wi-Fi, when guys like Steve come in and they build 12-inch thick walls, you can imagine what that does to our Wi-Fi and our network. So that's why it's critical, to have a lot of additional infrastructure in place for the network. Again, I know we're talking about dedicated offices, but we're seeing now is our clients are using our home office, but they're using the entire property now. It could be multiple buildings, it could be out in their pool house, out in a cabana. They expect to be able to work from those spaces as if they were in their office.
So we only have a couple minutes left here. So what I'd love to do is take a look at some takeaways that we'd love to leave you all with who are watching now. Dwayne, how about some things that builders can really take into consideration as they're looking to capitalize and build a successful home office?
I think the main thing to really consider on these is the home office in these conditions are really almost like building a sound studio that's got to look like an office. It's got to function like an office. It's got to be comfortable. And it's not just sitting behind the desk. So you've really got to think full picture on these things. There's a lot of new elements, even from a sound standpoint and office standpoint, that we really hadn't drawn into as the needs of the high-end executive have a greater need for privacy and sound considerations than most of us working from home, as we all are doing right now. So we've got to take all those considerations into place. Steve brought up a really good point, the flushing toilet. You've got to look at the whole picture. John said, where are they going to be working? A lot of times they're not going to be sitting at the desk. They may be sitting on the sofa in the office. Do they need video there? There's a lot of things that play how they're going to use the space. So it's a lot to think about when planning one of these out.
Absolutely. And as we've learned over the course of the last half hour or so, Steve, there are also many things that we need to keep in mind as far as acoustic success goes. So here are a few things that folks should be aware of as well.
Absolutely. And certainly Dwayne and I have worked together enough that he really hit on most of these, but I'll just kind of paraphrase him in a different way here. So the first thing is really, if you have the opportunity to locate your home office, just think about the adjacencies. Think about what could be infiltrating that space when it's all done and buttoned up and operational. So if there's a way to get away from those noisy spaces, that's one thing. If you can't, then at least be aware of what potential noise there is, and then look at the design, try to upgrade your partitions, your walls, your ceilings, your floors. You don't want those kids running over your head every time you're on a call because the floor ceiling construction over you is just so poor. So there are a lot of ways to do it. Most builders understand typical insulation in cavities, doubling up on board layers, some resilient attachments, et cetera, so that we can make sure that that home office is as sacred from acoustic privacy as it needs to be. I use the word taming, which I love to use that, the aliveness, the reverberation, or echo, as some people call it, of home offices. So the sound is natural. It doesn't draw attention to itself when you're on the other or listening on the other side. So absorbing panels, don't over deaden it, because that could be just as bad too. It could sound very lifeless, sound like you're in a recording studio, but you don't want to be. HVAC and plumbing, yep, toilets flushing, definitely an issue. Just running water, bad HVAC noise definitely can hinder any type of productivity or conferencing. And then just be aware that the doors and the windows are almost always the weak links between the interior and the outside noises that can infiltrate a home office. So look into, just like we did in that one Manhattan apartment and others as well, look into upgrading those windows and those doors, especially get the good quality gasketed seals. I mean, if you have to go for Home Depot seals, well, it's better than nothing, but I can assure you they won't last very long in a constantly used space interior. So there are definitely better assemblies to get from Zero or Legacy that can really do the trick for sealing up those gaps.
Well, very good. Well, I think we've been able to tackle some great topics here, and we've been able to share some great information. Dwayne, John, Steve, I want to thank you very much for participating with us here, sharing your insights and your expertise. Your next session in the Lux track here, to all of you watching, is going to be the Lux Tech Idea Bank. That's going to be sponsored by Bravis. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.